The WAFB Podcast Network is sponsored by Neighbors Federal Credit Union.
Hey, good morning, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm talking to Garth Brooks. Entering his second year as the LSU head football coach.
It was the only way I could get a foot in the door.
Joined by the icon, Kim Mulkey. Hey, Coach, great to see you.
Jacques Talk is sponsored by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp and Couillon's Cajun Barbecue.
All right, thanks for dropping by today. We've got some seasoned journalists joining us here today. We are not the TikTok crowd here talking about LSU football. Jimmy Ott and Scott Rabalais, guys, thanks for coming down.
It's a nice way to say old, huh, Scott?
I was in this studio in 1974 with my Cub Scout troop on the Buckskin Bill show. So I've been here before.
Buckskin Bill just went to the WAFB Hall of Fame. The Wall of Fame up front. You'll see a picture of Buckskin Bill. Very impactful guy here at Channel 9. And, well, I don't know how to transition out of Buckskin Bill to LSU football, but it's a rough night, Jimmy. I mean, from the Mike the Tiger that wasn't Mike the Tiger to the game, the weather, the chunking of bottles out of the stands, the $250,000 fine. Not much positive came out of Saturday night.
What was supposed to be, just such a celebration of, LSU and, the power couple and Skeens and Livy Dunn on game day and in the quad, and it's packed and everything, and just it turned sour real quick. And, I know Scott and I are historians, and I go back to my dad's playing days in the late 50s, and it's just, since the turn of the golden era, and we were since Saban took over, this is probably one of the most disappointing outcomes or performances that we've seen. And we've broken down some tape and looking back at its scheme, its alignment, its effort, it's all across the board. Not being prepared for a guy's going to beat you, let him beat you with his legs, which he did the year before. 8 touchdowns the last 2 games for Milroe, just on his legs alone. And so after you just got burned in game by a running quarterback in College Station, which was disappointing in itself. But we go back to the Coleman 58-3 loss against Florida. There's been some tough. I've sat through a lot of Alabama losses. Charlie Mack, Bear Bryant. Those were like 24-14, 24-13, competitive. And I still go back to when John Robinson passed away this week, and I worked with him some, and he told me about, that 79 game, we came in, and they had future Pro Football Hall of Famers everywhere. Everywhere is where Marcus Allen was the fullback for Charles Wright. It was an unbelievable thing. And it was just, you were going to be in for a fight. You were going to be in for a real war in this environment. We saw this is probably the most talented team that Ole Miss has ever had, and for them since the early 60s. And for them to come in, LSU's not winning that game anywhere else but Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
And, that crowd and that atmosphere energizes the team, and you just didn't have any of it. We see an original game day, I think, with DiNardo's team scored first, but it was called back for a legal man downfield or a legal formation. So 7-0 turned into 30-0. We saw Sean Alexander, but this team you're further along, and you're paying Brian Kelly a lot of money, and it's just a tough one, man. We get a little long in the tooth, veterans, if you want to call me. This one aggravated me. This one really, this one really got to me this time. Almost brought the fan out in me a little bit again.
Yeah, Scott, the last 6 quarters this team has played, they've been bad. They got outscored 31-6 second half against A&M, and a lot of people say they don't even count the last touchdown that Garrett Nussmeier threw with 11 seconds left. They're firing fireworks, losing 42-13. They are not playing complimentary football. They're bad on both sides, so I guess that is a version of complimentary football, but not the one you want.
It's a backhanded compliment at best. It's almost stunning. You think midway through the third quarter at A&M, LSU's up 17-7, controlling the game. And then they put in the backup quarterback, and he starts running, and as you said, outscores LSU 31-6 the rest of the way. Then it just carries over with Milroe on Saturday with Alabama, and it's like they've lost their swagger, they've lost their self-confidence. I'm afraid that's certainly evident with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. And that's hard to get back when you lose it. That's hard to regain that, and it's something that built up over the 6-game win streak after the USC loss, and now they've lost it, and now you got to go on the road to. Obviously, it's not a classic Florida team by any means. It's not going to the swamp when Spurrier was the coach or Urban Meyer was the coach, but it still can be a tough environment, and for a team that still has things to play for, that still has a mathematical path to the SEC championship game, believe it or not. But can they get that confidence back to go and win that game? Especially you have to go against DJ Lagway, who is another dual threat quarterback.
You know, Jacques, I got to be fair too, and I probably got a little bit caught up in the 6-game winning streak as well. But this team is not where it needs to be, this roster, and to the point where the coaching staff kind of was getting the most out of them. You know, we saw kind of career games by about 4 guys on defense in that Ole Miss game. And look, the A&M game, they were up 10 in the third, should have been up considerably more. It's kind of the flip of the Ole Miss game. Ole Miss probably should have had a little bit more of a cushion against us instead, and allowed us a chance to get that spark. And that's why all the elite, the top teams, the top half teams in the SEC, all but Georgia went to Austin and took care of them pretty easily. Well, they had a little motivation on their side, the no respect card. That was the first time in 50 games they were underdog in. But all the other ones, Tennessee beats Bama in Tennessee, LSU beats Ole Miss at home, Alabama beat Georgia at home, and A&M beat LSU at home. The home crowd just energized. But the roster is, we're reminded on, and this is not a great Alabama team.
No,
I mean
two losses.
That's the thing. It's a
not 2020 or 2011.
I mean, it's
Alabama
a team that's life or death. It was 2-point conversion away from going in overtime against South Carolina at home.
Yeah.
They got a favorable draw when Missouri, the quarterback situation is really poor. This is not that juggernaut team. They're in transition, and this was kind of set up with the schedule this year that you could have been. LSU was even money to make the playoff, and that's fair. I mean, come on. If you can't finish, if you're not LSU's resources and Kelly's budget and and his salary and everything else, and LSU, everything they have to sell, the last 3 coaches haven't won a national championship. Only Miami's done that ever.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean, that's a very fair. I don't care what your roster is, and to not be in the picture basically with 3 games to go. I know mathematically they're still alive, and maybe more of a shot than I give it, but still, it's disappointing that we didn't even put up a fight.
Yeah, I agree with you. When they were 6-1, I thought this was the best coaching job Brian Kelly and his staff had done, because I don't think the talent. We've all watched 2001 LSU, 2003, 7, 11, 19. We've seen that talent, and it kind of struck me, guys, the other day when they did the starting lineups and they announced all the players. The roar of the crowd only rose a couple of times in terms of star players. How many star players do we have? And before the year, I'm not good at picking how many games they're going to win, but it was kind of in between, well, this season could go off the rails, or maybe they could be 10-2. And we've kind of seen a little bit of both. Like you said, beat Ole Miss, beat South Carolina, who's a pretty good team on the road, but then flop these last 2 games.
And I'm guilty of the same thing. This roster is nothing like those championship rosters, or those rosters that made a run like 11, not even close. But whose is? And that's the only thing. And a lot of people talk about the depth, and nobody has depth right now. Georgia, all of a sudden, Georgia's not the same team they've been, not close, to what they've been recently. Alabama, some of those teams, and the LSU teams, when the Ohio State, all the money that they brought in, they spent this year. Phil Knight late in his life, deep into his life. Oregon, they got an open checkbook for their NIL pay for play, but there's no super team. There really isn't. So I got to keep catching myself too, in that. But still, LSU should be on par with some of the elite. I mean, come on. I mean, Ole Miss, Kiffin rattled some cages to finally get a little money out of that booster, that fan base. But Ole Miss should not have a better roster than LSU. And that gets to where Kelly, he admitted his mistakes. I mean, he's hired now guys that he's passed up on originally.
Corey Raymond, Blake Baker. Because
he felt that the program had recruited itself. It doesn't. Now it's geared to recruiting. What's their recruiting ranking going to be this 2025? It's going to be very good, top 5. So, but why a couple of years on the job training? And this is what you see because of it. Now, no, he's in his third year. He should have his guys in here. Normally, it's a little bit different, but he hasn't recruited well early on. He's fixed it.
Scott, let's talk about Brian Kelly. There's a nice gentleman at my gym who's never been a Brian Kelly fan from day one. He had a Fire Kelly t-shirt at the gym on Monday. I've tried to explain the contract and the money owed and whatnot. There was a national host who said, I don't think Brian Kelly's making it to year 4 at LSU. He obviously doesn't understand the contract and what LSU's on the hook for and whatnot. Look, if Brian Kelly wins his final 3 games and wins a bowl game, he will be 30-10 through 3 seasons, which is 75% winning percentage. But this isn't 1995, and they're not paying $300,000 for a coach anymore. They're paying $10 million. So the return on investment and how do fans feel now? You know, I was talking to Kevin Falk the other day. When he played, 2 teams made the national championship, and the other said, hey, we can play at a New Year's Day bowl, or we can do this or that. Now with the 12-team playoff, those bowl games, which we have gone to and have seen the attendance plummet year after year, where's the excitement level if you don't make the playoff?
Well, it's certainly not the same. I mean, they're more irrelevant every year now, especially the playoff has expanded. And to what Jimmy alluded to, it seems like LSU's missing an opportunity this year because there aren't any great teams this year. Everyone's got some flaws or vulnerabilities. And this is an opportunity for LSU to at least make some noise and advance the program to a certain point. But about Brian Kelly, has he done a great job so far at LSU? No, but there have been successes. They won the SEC West in 22. Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman, a player he brought in. Remember we were saying, like, I was saying, why are you bringing him in? You got Miles Brennan, who's a veteran guy. He hasn't played much, but he's a veteran guy. Well, we saw why, what kind of player he is and still is in the NFL. Made some mistakes with offensive hires and on the recruiting, defensive hires rather, and on the recruiting trail, and had to send his special teams coordinator packing, but now they seem to be getting things going in the right direction in that regard. But it's taken a lot more time than people want to think. And if Garrett Nussmeier doesn't come back next year, they're probably next year is a kind of a rebuilding, retooling year. No matter what, I think if Garrett comes back, he could be much better, as Joe Burrow was in year 2 here, as Jaden was in year 2. But then you wait until 2026, and that's a long, long time, from now, much less from when Brian Kelly started. But I don't see that LSU has much choice but to wait. LSU is still paying off Ed Orgeron. They're paying Ed Orgeron in installments throughout the year through December 15th of next year.
Oh, it's a lot of hamburgers for Coach O.
He's still got some really nice big checks coming in.
Keep paying me.
That's right, and he's and so if someone says get rid of Brian Kelly, there's some people who want to get rid of the coach every time the team has to punt. Obviously these are not. That's not the way you run a program, but. He came here for a 10-year, $100 million deal. You're on the hook for 60-something million, or at least. Plus, what you'd have to pay for assistant coaches. You're paying Blake Baker $2.5 million for per year on a 3-year deal. So this is not the kind of money LSU has to throw around.
Jack, there's a big difference between fan unrest, unrest, and a coach on the hot seat. Okay, keep in mind there were 4 big-time programs that were making hires that year. And Kelly's clearly the best right now. Yeah. Okay, Florida, Billy Napier. Oklahoma, Venables, Lincoln Riley at USC. Those 4 schools are used to winning, and he's outperforming those. Yes. This is a tough one right now. You bring us in here on a rainy day after Alabama, man. When we're throwing beer cans at our cheerleaders. This is a rough week. He's not getting fired, and not even close. But I think there's some things that he has done wrong. I think there's some missteps that he's, through his actions, not through his words, that he has corrected and that he has admitted. So, but that delays it when you start making these things and you kind of learn and as you go. And so that's the thing this is the grease is hot in the SEC in recruiting, man. It's not easy. And now with the and when I say recruiting, I mean that's with the transfer portal as well. Just compiling your roster. So And look, Jaden Daniels was so good in 2023 last season. I mean, it's hard to win the Heisman Trophy with 3 losses. That's how good he was. And you see, it's to do what he's doing as a rookie in the NFL is unbelievable. That masked a lot of LSU's deficiencies as well. So, I mean, the roster is just, okay, maybe we can't get to 11, 19, or 03, but man, we're not maxing out, in our roster build.
All right. Brian Kelly, good with a chance to be great. Where have I heard that before?
That's Hannon.
On the show during the week. Yeah, I mean, look, he's done a good job, but there's just been, on these big stages, some games where like, man, we didn't play very well, and the last 2 were big stages in College Station in front of 108,000 people, and this past week with ESPN College Game Day on campus and all that, and it didn't go well.
Just a missed opportunity. The whole thing was a chance to be such a showcase. Everybody was talking going into the game, Tiger Stadium at night, there's nothing better. And then
Me too.
Then you had the Pat McAfee inspiring the vulgar chants at game day, and then people throwing the bottles and things, and then the fake tiger, and then the game. It just ended up being, unfortunately for LSU, kind of a big negative, except for Paul Skeens and Livy Dunn.
Like McAfee. I mean, one time, like 6 times, or whatever he had to do over and over. I mean,
I'm not a fan.
No. So, I mean, but it was, and this was a little pride, shot to the pride of because the Tiger Stadium wasn't. It was ready. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of that was that Joe Burrow again the 18 game.
Yeah.
When we missed
29 points
early. Yeah. So, but that stadium was ready to ready to blow, just never had the opportunity.
That was a beautiful day. Coach O came down the hill like a professional wrestler that day. He was doing the uppercuts. He was screaming and yelling. He's high-fiving with everybody, and everyone's like, today's our day. We're going to beat them, And I think Jacob Phillips, after he finished his career, I asked him what was the loudest atmosphere you ever played in front of him. He said it was that game for about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then similar Saturday night. Yeah.
I think Herb Smith, the kid from New Orleans, caught a touchdown for Alabama late in the first half. And, they lost 29-0. I'm not good at math, but 42-13 is also a 29-point loss, Scott. And I remember both times the sun didn't come out for like 3 days around here. I mean, it's just been gloomy and dark and gray. And you look at things, I mean, what have been the offensive line? Like going into the year, we said, or at least I said, this could be the strength of the team. 2 future first-rounders, veterans, Miles Frazier, Garrett Dellinger, Brad Davis coaching him, local guy. And that and the running game is just not materialized since the Nichols game. Well, the longest run against Nichols was 12 yards. The guy Guggenheim, he rips off a 70-yarder for the Colonels, and that's just, it's a feeding frenzy, right? You can't run the ball. They're teeing off on Nussmeier, who's not a scrambler, and the whole thing's kind of going downhill.
Well, there's a big difference, between pass protection blocking and run blocking. And I don't know if you remember Saban's first year in 2000, we couldn't get a yard running the ball. But he said, Jimbo, we're going to keep running it. Well, games like 8 and 9, Tofield started, punch, when they get in the red zone, started getting 7s instead of 3s. His team hasn't really been committed to the running game. You see a guy like Tennessee's running back right here from Dutchtown. He'd be a nice one to have.
Samson.
But the tackles are still going to be drafted high, but they're better at pass protection than they are run blocking. Emory actually had graded out decent at run blocking for this game, but that's not what they do best. And when Charlie was bringing it to my attention on the show, I was like, man, the offensive line depth. I said, well, Charlie, nobody has depth on the offensive line. It's 2024. And man, one little injury, you see. I mean, it makes an impact. So, but no, this line overall, I think as a unit has been a little bit of a mild disappointment. They've been very good at pass protection, but when you're one-dimensional, I mean, that does make it tougher. A running game will take pressure off of a quarterback without a doubt. And as far as Nussmeier coming back, a lot of the scouts now we're hearing, but 25 starts. We're going to be a little bit cautious of drafting you high if you don't have 25 starts in college. He came back for another year, he'd have right at 25 starts. So as far as coming back, yes. And look, Jaden Daniels wasn't close to what he was in year one here after starts in Tempe. But Burrow, the best ever played a position here. I mean, he wasn't close. to it as well. So he's got ability. He's got arm talent. And, that first half, I mean, the broadcast team was gooing it. I mean, they were all but ready to give him the Heisman against Texas A&M. And, but every quarterback is inconsistent in this league, especially in the SEC. Every single quarterback. Milroe had a great day. Him too. He's a very inconsistent, and Nussmeier's just one of those guys.
Yeah, well, I remember when Jaden announced he was coming back, people got angry.
A little bit.
We need to see Nussmeier, and then this cost us Walker Howard. He went to Ole Miss, well.
No one's ever more popular than the backup quarterback at LSU.
Yeah. Even Mickey Guidry with Hodgson?
They loved Mickey Guidry until he came in and they lost to Alabama. They won loss in 1987 when he had to start the game.
I love Mickey. I'm just joking around.
We had the SEC teleconference with the coaches today, and Brian Kelly was asked about Nussmeier, and he's talked about his footwork and going back to basics and mechanics. And obviously they got to feel just reading between the lines, they feel like they have to build him back up a little bit confidence-wise, maybe simplify some things on the offense. Like there's no throw Garrett doesn't think he can make, and that's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. When the throw he made to Aaron Anderson to send the game in overtime against Ole Miss, that's as good as you can make. I mean, he wasn't open ever, and he completed that pass. But sometimes he thinks he can make those passes. And just the throwing off his back foot thing, that's not a way. Talk about the opposite of proper mechanics. Yeah, I'm no quarterbacks coach, but obviously that's not good. And he's gotten a little gun shy with the pass rush and everything that's been coming at him as well. He's gotten knocked around a few times, so he's got to improve in that area. But you've got to, again, like with Brian Kelly, you've got to give him the chance. I mean, there's really no other.
Just like every other quarterback, he needs reps. He's got talent. The reps in that second year would be really advantageous to his level of play at college, but also his draftability and his stock. And look, when you lose, those things come to light. Our Sunday show, Mike Delicano's been talking about his sloppy footwork and throwing off his back foot for a couple months now. So, I mean, this is, you start giving those things more attention when you lose. But no, this is something that he's been doing for a while.
Yeah, it's the old Jared Lee thing. Hadn't had the pick sixes, but that was always the thing about Jared Lee, right? He was throwing off his back foot, and when he felt the heat and everything.
Most interceptions, he has 11 now. Most since Jared threw 16 in 2008. So they're kind of stacking up.
Jaden threw 4 last year, I think, total.
Well, he
so
protects
Joe
the
threw
ball.
6 in 19. Yeah, I think it was 4. Yeah.
Even his first year, that's why he was so hesitant, and he would one look and kind of tuck it and run, because he was ultra protective, with the ball. So you would hope that a little bit of that would rub off on Nuss, but not Nuss. He's a gunslinger. And it's funny because most coaches' sons are a little bit more protective of the ball. So he needs reps, and he needs just more experience. He's been here for a while, and we expect him to play like a 3-year starter when he's been on campus for 3 years. It doesn't work like that. It helps. It helps curve the the developmental process, but it's not the same.
A few more things. So LSU goes to Florida this weekend. Unlike pro football, I mean, the Saints were up because they got an interim coach, so they were fired up. But typically, pro teams are the same every week. It's their job. There's no emotion as much as the college game when you are perhaps being told from the outside you're out of the college playoff race, you don't have anything to play for, blah, blah, blah. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of effort they give in Gainesville this weekend up against the Florida Gators. And Billy Napier apparently is going to stick around for 2025 there as their head coach.
If LSU fans think it's a mess, they're not happy with things. Consider what it's like to be a Florida fan. Your team's got a losing record. They'd like to fire Napier. He's coming back next year. The men's basketball coach is being investigated for stalking female students. The athletic director is on the hot seat. There's no school president. It's a mess in Florida. It really is. And but still a dangerous team. I don't know who's going to win Saturday. Tell me how effective, or will DJ Lagway even play? How effective he is. I was talking to a sports writer friend real quick before I came to the show today, and he said he didn't think that even if Lagway plays, and they're going to probably try to play him, he didn't think they're just going to let him run wild because you want him to keep playing. I mean, they're probably going to be afraid of him getting re-injured again, hurting that hamstring.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, Jimmy, if you're Florida, you put somebody athletic in the shotgun and let him run around. If you're playing LSU,
they
right?
don't have that guy. They've got their version of Andrew Hatch, from the Ivy League. And, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, it's kind of like going from Perilou to Hatch because they were competitive. They lost. Mertz was lost of the year on a touchdown pass to go up 17-7 against Tennessee in Knoxville. and they lost in overtime there. And then Lagway was hurt when they're up 7 against Georgia in Jacksonville. And it was Napier, despite all the problems and all of the poor record, they were still playing hard. And he still had that locker room playing hard. And then when they had the kid who's the Ivy League quarterback again in Austin, it was they didn't put up much of a fight. So it's funny that right after he got his, when he's coming back, they kind of fell off a little bit. So it's just a big drop off. Florida will be competitive with Lagway. Will he be 100%? Probably not. He dressed out and warmed up in Austin on Saturday, but then as soon as they came out the chute, he was just in some street pants and a jersey only, no pads. So he's seen some of the quarterbacks, some of the coaches play games with that. I still thought he would be out another week. I thought he was going to be out for the season when he was hurt in that Georgia game, but he does make a big difference whether or not they're able to compete. They're so thin, but he is. And what has made them more competitive is some of their younger guys that have come up and gotten more playing time. They're much better at the line of scrimmage than the team that just got completely pushed around by Miami in game 1, the season opener.
I like Billy Napier. The times I've met him, he's been a real nice guy. I mean, certainly he did things with the Raging Cajuns that no one has done and no one probably will do. I guess when you go 13-1 and you're still in the New Orleans Bowl, it's time to take another job. He had to take another job, but he'll get a lot of money one way or the other. But it just hasn't worked out since he's gotten there. And LSU never really gave him a sniff, didn't interview him or any of that.
They weren't gonna hire him.
Not a typical Woody hire. I mean, no, it just isn't. I mean, ULL, Sun Belt. I mean, you're successful in the Sun Belt, you get a Power 5 job, a Power 4 job. He did, but I mean, Woody, he went up to Brian Kelly, and he's had to pay for it to get a guy with Brian Kelly's credentials.
Yeah, well, there's always that debate too now. I mean, Brian Kelly, 63 or whatever he is, not old, but your Kiffins and some of your other coaches are younger. They're maybe a little more energetic, but Kelly's got those kind of assistants beneath him to kind of run the show.
It's the staff. He didn't have the right staff in place to start with, or even last year. Now things are looking better and trending the right way. Now people can complain about Joe Sloan and maybe some of his play calling stuff, but you're kind of tied to Joe Sloan too because he's been the primary recruiter on Bryce Underwood, #1 player in the country. LSU's trying to land next month.
I don't think it's just age; it's energy level as well. I mean, the guy from Indiana is not real young, and nobody's done a job like him. Nobody, not in my lifetime. 1995, when Barnett got Northwestern to win the Big Ten and go to the Rose Bowl, that's the best I've seen. It's a different era. I've never seen one like this. Yeah. I mean, they're single-digit underdogs next week in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, they're 10-0 at Indiana.
10-0 for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down, guys, on short notice, fighting the weather and everything. Was not a
bring us back after a win, some a little bit more upbeat.
Exactly. I'm going to bring you back after LSU wins that SEC championship and is in the playoff, because apparently that was laid out for me today that they could still make it to the SEC championship with 2 losses.
Telling me there's a chance.
I will say this:
That's right.
It's more of a chance than 2007 scenario on that championship Saturday.
Well, real quick, Jimmy, I was listening to you that day driving home. I think I was at the intersection. Fred's on my right, whatever, the liquor shop on my left, and some guy called into your show after the game and said, "Jimmy, we can still make the national championship just after losing to Arkansas." And I felt like, come on, man.
And
he laid
that
it all
game
out
after Arkansas.
He laid it all out.
Oh yeah,
And it happened.
Yeah, 30-point dogs got to win outright.
Rich Rodriguez, do you think he loses sleep still over that game?
Absolutely.
He was going to be the national championship, 30-point favorite.
Yes,
lost.
at home.
Unreal.
At home.
All right, thanks for stopping by. Tell people about this conversation. We'll see you later. Have yourself a great one.